Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to talk about shaft lean. We're going to talk about what it is, how you get it, and how you train it in. All right guys, so let's talk about shaft lean now. When I'm referring to shaft lean, obviously everyone during the downswing is looking for some form of lag look. But when I am talking about shaft lean, more specifically at the impact position, is the shaft leaning to the left or leaning towards the target. There's no doubt that this is one of the few commonalities of all good players. If you were to take a moment in time and you were to pause them, you would notice that the shaft is leaning to my left, your right watching it. Handle is forward of the club head at the moment of time at impact. So when we talk about shaft lean, that is what we're talking about. Now first, let's go over what is shaft lean before we talk about how to get it. One of the biggest misconceptions, and I even had my whole life when I was playing golf, is the idea that shaft lean or lag came from hinging the club, or this sort of angle here between the club and my hand. We'll call that radial deviation is the scientific term we use, very fancy, or it's just hinge, wrist cock, whatever you want to call that here. So I was under the impression that from the top of my swing, certainly there's some angle there, right, between my hands and the club. There's an angle. I sort of thought, hey, those guys and girls who play really good, they take that angle and essentially they just kind of hold that angle all the way through impact and forever. Now, I don't know if I wasn't very intelligent when I was younger, just didn't know enough to sort of think through it. But obviously if I came down and I had this angle, this upward hinge, and I kept that hinge forever, I would never hit the golf ball. Right? So how does my club head, I've talked about this a little bit in previous videos, but I don't think it's fully understood yet. So I want to go over this again. If I were from here during my downswing, say the club's last parallel, I have some hinge in my wrist. So some of this radial deviation, and my left wrist is flat at this point. So there's no flexion, there's no extension, it's just flat, no bow, no cup, whatever you want to call that. So my left wrist is flat and there's some hinge. Now by the time I go from last parallel until impact, the hinge that I have, this angle here, is effectively eliminated. You see this here? So from here to impact, this is happening right there. Now the difference is I'm not just static here when I'm doing it. My hand's still working towards the target. My body's opening, my shoulders are opening, my hands are moving forward, and I'm replacing this. I'm unhinged now. I'm replacing that with a flat or bowed left wrist, right? So the first key point to understand is when you get shaft lean, you don't get it through this angle just staying forever. You would never hit the ball. That angle needs to be released here to get down to the golf ball. And then you're squaring the face there through lead arm supination and or wrist flexion, right? Wrist bowing at that point. That's how you square the face. So hopefully that makes sense. You're not trying to hold this. This has to get released. Now, if I were to stand towards you, right, sort of that aside, we understand, hey, I'm not trying to hold that hinge forever. Well, then, Eric, how do I get my hands forward? Well, there's two main pieces involved with that. Number one would be if I took my normal setup here, and I'll just go with my left hand, here would be my normal setup position. If I wanted to have my handle move more forward or my shaft leaning forward, my left hand position, if I had no body elements involved, would have to go this way for me to get the handle forward. So that would be going from a flat or slightly extended, slightly cupped left wrist to a what? Flat or bowed left wrist, right? That's how my hands would have to work to get the shaft lean. My left hand would have to go from extended to slightly bowed, here to here, that bow look right there. My right hand, same thing. If I were at my normal address position, my right hand is fairly flat. If I wanted to go from there to get the shaft forward, the handle forward, what would have to happen? If I kept my right hand on the club, obviously my hand needs to go towards the target, but also notice the angle in my wrist would have to become greater. My right wrist would have to get extended there in that position. So for me to get shaft lean, what does this do? Is that leaning the shaft forward? Not at all. That's me hinging the club up. Well, that's your lag look right there. All you did to get lag, it's here, that's your lag look. That doesn't produce any sort of forward. What produces forward is this. My hand's going towards the target is this. That's a lag look right there. Left wrist bent back, right wrist bent back. So honestly, I think over 50% of you guys watching this have thought that this is sort of what you held forever, and that's not reality. It's training your wrists in this plane of motion, not in this plane of motion, which gives you that lag look. So that's a big part of it, is you understanding the handling. Now, if I were to set up to a golf ball as well, and I just took a normal setup, and if I didn't want to do as much with my arms and hands, if I took that out of play, the other way I can get my handle forward is through body rotation. So if I just held on to the club and I were to rotate, right? If I held on loosely and I just turned my body, also that club is going to go forward. If I stood here like this, my arms are hanging in front of me, and I turn my body towards the target, right? Club aside, where do my hands go? Do they go forward or do they go back? Well, they go forward, obviously, right? So that goes along with it too. As I turn my body, my handle goes forward. Now, if you look at really good players, they do both of those things. They have their wrists in this plane of motion here, like this, and they turn their body. So they would get the best of both worlds there at their impact position. So this is more so of an understanding that I want you guys to have in this video, which is we're not trying to hold this angle at all. That's going to be completely released, completely unhinged by the time you're at impact. We're having the handle forward through left wrist flexion, right wrist extension like this, and through torso rotation. Now, in terms of hitting some shots and training that in, I would work the hands first and then start to work the body in with that. Meaning, if I took a normal setup position here like so, and then I were to just feel, if just my hands went forward with no body, and my club head's still on the ground, so I'm putting a little pressure on the shaft. What does that feel like to me? Okay, that feels like my left wrist is more bowed, my hands, whatever you need to feel like that, just to have a little position like that. And then I would get myself back to impact and try and hit a little shot, feeling the same piece. And you notice when I do that and exaggerate that, I hit that really solid and took a nice little divot there. It's an exaggerated drill, you know. And I would do that first, got a big divot there, and train that in with just my hands. So here's my normal setup. Here's what I feel like at impact with just my hands are forward. I feel the sort of pressure on the shaft, right wrist extended, left wrist flat. I come back to impact, and then I'm just trying to reiterate that same feel and exaggerate that. Both of those were really solid shots. I'm exaggerating the wrist conditions portion, taking a pretty nice, healthy divot. What I would do from there then is add in the body component. So, okay, yes, I sort of did just my arms and hands by themselves. I felt this here. Now, what if as I'm doing that, I start opening my body, start opening my hips towards the target, opening my chest a little bit, and the same thing, I get a feel for what that's like. Feel my left wrist flat, right wrist extended, pressing the shaft, feel my hips are open more than normal, and then I get back to impact, and then I'm feeling that same thing. And I train in and start to rehearse those feels like that. You have to understand the information first. This here, this angle, is not how I get shaft lean. I get it through this. You combine these wrist conditions with torso rotation or opening or rotation, and then you start to look like the best players in the world. And then you got to start to train that. Start with your hands first, okay? Work that in, add the body part to it, build your way up from super slow and short swings up to full swings with those same feels. That's what shaft lean is. That's also what shaft lean is not, and that's how you train it. Start slow, start short, and then work your way up. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button down below. Click the notification bell if you haven't already, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you have any questions, as always, leave us a comment down below.